Guys.
Just run it back. We'll be all right.
Hi, guys. No, so when you beef it and you go this late, you're kind of able to just treat it like you're going hee hee hoo hoo ha ha. So it's okay. Hi, everybody. You assume that when you hit OBS and it hits start streaming, that the YouTube button also hits start streaming. And that was not the case. And I'm going to let Elliot roast me for the next 30 seconds, who joins me in the booth today here at Bathurst, which we are running at night at round 2 of week 3 of the North American Sim Racing Series. Elliot, the floor is yours.
The only thing I'm going to say about that is sometimes big oofs happen, and this is a supersized oof, Jackson, and I'm going to allow it.
I'm not proud of it, but bigger, more disappointing things will be coming from Elliot and I in about 2 days' time when we take the track here at Bathurst. Your fastest right now, Michael Landry. Joel Klaus joins the party right now in his Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. So a couple mid-engine cars up front, and then it's Mikhail Charles in third. Nobody quite breaking that 2-minute barrier yet. Fastest we've gotten right now, 2 even, .732, and it is needle close up front, separating just over a tenth separating the top 3 in the field right now. Mikhail running a 2-minute even, .882. So really, really close here at the front end of the field. For those of you just joining us, which is absolutely everybody, a quick walkthrough about just how intense this track can be, how quickly it can bite you, and just how important qualifying can be at a track like this.
Yeah, we were talking about this while we were having a small technical difficulty, and we had mentioned that Bathurst is a combination of 2 tracks. It is a very high-speed straightaway or series of straightaways with very quick corners, and then it is the very technical mountain section. And the mountain section is where a lot of, you and I had mentioned a lot of the mid-engines and the rear engines are going to have a very high level of capability against the fronts, the massive top-end speed that those Mercedes, those Fords, and those BMWs have. It's going to be very incredible to see the overtakes that these gentlemen are going to be performing, these folks are going to be performing through. We talk about in the rookie series that there's no overtaking in the mountain, right? Because we know that we don't have the skill set necessarily as a whole to be able to do so safely, but we will see that tonight. We will see a lot of that tonight. We will see a lot of maneuvers that, it's a very risky maneuver, but for these folks driving today, they know how to drive the track together. And that's something that it's a skill set. It's a very high grade of driving capability that allows us to experience an opportunity to see just so much speed.
Let's try giving you guys an onboard lap one more time. Joel Klaus at the bottom of the hill. He's on it. Turn 1, hell corner. Watch the inside as the curving likes to spit you out. Run all that green curbing on the outside. This is an important corner to set up. Mountain straight, one of your main opportunities to overtake here going into turn 2, Griffiths Bend. Watch the left here. We're going to have an access road to the left of us. That's when we're going to start braking. Ready? Hard on the brakes. Watch, run a little bit of the curbing here, and then you can run all the way outside to the wall. Will not go off track limits. Up the hill, here we go into the cutting. Get as close to that inside wall. Brake hard. Stay in the middle of the track here. Turn 4, run to that outside wall with the Audi markings. If you're brave enough and you trust your downforce hard enough, you can run it flat out here as we work through Quarry Corner, getting as close to these walls as possible. Over the hill, run it to the outside. Curbing on the inside, run it again here as we go through McPhillamy Park. Lift at the bend, hit this curbing at the end. Watch the curbing on the outside as it can upset the car so much. Ride the brakes here down Skyline. Again, using as much of the track as possible without hitting the walls. Here's the dip. Get on the throttle as quick as that car flattens out and let the wheels hook up. Onto Forest Elbow. Bit of a lift and a hard brake here. Again, you're hugging that wall. Klaus goes a little bit wide here. But again, getting on throttle as soon as possible. Then it's the long run onto Conrad Straight and the chase.
This is probably one of my favorite tracks in general. I watch how these folks drive it, and I'm so impressed. I mean, I could never.
Brake right after the 150 here into the chase. run it as much as possible, just running it up to that curbing on the right. Watch the curbing on the left here as it gets a little bit upset. Last turn here, Murray's Corner, brake right before the 100 where the McGuire start on the right. Tap the curbing on the left. For a lap here at Mount Panorama. That's good enough for a 2:01.9. But Mikhail Charles has worked his way to the front. But Michael Landry has something to say about it right now as he works his way to the end of the racetrack, almost 2/10 up. This could get us under the 2-minute mark. To the line, not quite. Good enough for a 2-minute 3.6. So Charles still fastest right now, just 0.075 ahead of Mikhail Charles. But no, going back to what you said, Elliot, it's such a love-hate relationship with this track. I think you could say that with anybody here in NASRS, because a lot of people were saying they're excited, a lot of people were saying they're scared. It is absolutely satisfying when you get this track right, especially through the mountain section, but the reward is just as high as the risk when it comes to Bathurst.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a few key turns here, right? Forest Elbow, turn 23, turn 1. Those are kind of your key target points to make sure you absolutely nail. If you don't nail them, your lap time is terrible, as I learned over the weekend. Other than that, this track is so much fun. I spent a lot of time, you spent a lot of time, we spent a lot of time together driving back and forth and learning where the limits are. And so many of these folks already know where that limit is, and they are putting in lap times that, I mean, my fastest lap time, and I got absolutely lucky with it, was a 2:03.6. And I think right now, I'm just looking at the board, it looks like that's barely faster than the slowest here. Barely. Like, it is so tight to the margins and to the walls. You have to absolutely clench everything, every muscle in your body, and hope that you don't miss.
Checkered flag coming out here in qualifying. This should be doing it for about everybody in the top 3. So Mikhail Charles will be on pole for the first time here in season 23. Michael Landry will start alongside him. It'll be Joel Klaus in 3rd. Jorge Blasini Rivera is 4th. Joris Butkus is 5th. Zach Martin in the Mustang will be 6th. Adriel Lugo Ortiz 7th. Grayson Head 8th. Mike Quant is 9th. And Casey Jackman is 10th. When we come back, cars will be rolling. Stay with us.
Like, I have one where it's just the ACC.
Quick look at your pro standings here as we get cars rolling at Bathurst. Jacob Palmieri coming off of his win at Alton Park, as you guys saw with Elliott last week. Mikhail Charles rounding that out in second. Casey Jackman finished third. Edriel Lugo-Ortiz in fourth. And Arjun Lakshminarasimhan played the long game on strategy. That paid off for him with a top 5 finish. We're back here at Bathurst with cars rolling. Jackson Lambros in the booth alongside Elliott Brown. Let's give you a look at our starting grid right now. 23 cars tonight, starting off in the back with Thomas Homer. Ty Switt in that other BMW is going to be 22nd. Jesse Beauclair, 21st. Keith Bull is in 20th. Brian Crane, 19th. Layla Martinez in that Taco Bell machine is in 6th. Matt Quant in 17th in that McLaren. Don Debian and Davin Sturdivant make 16th and 15th. Brian Slater is in 14th in that other Ferrari, and Jake Stork is in 13th.
We have Zach Beauclair, the other Beauclair, in 12th. Carter Hain in 11th. Up front, we have our top 10, starting with, does this matter, Michael? I only see an M. Another Quant in 10th, followed by Grayson Head side by side for that back row of the top 10. Edriel Lugo-Ortiz, Casey Jackman filling out the next row ahead of them. Up front, we have Zach Martin and Jorge Blasini Riviera filling out the 5th and 6th place positions. Joel Klaus and, what was that, Jorientas Butkus?
Yes. On the front row, couple
filling
of
out 3rd place.
Yep. On the front row, couple of champions. Michael Landry, 3-time champ, alongside your defending season 22 champ. It is Mikhail Charles of Trinidad in 1st. So the question is, one, we already know it's going to be a matter of survival here, Elliott. But
oh yes,
for strategy, what do you like here for strategy? Even cut it? Do you go for the short game like what Arjun did at Alton, or do you maybe try and stretch it out? A double stint here might not be as punishing on these Pirellis as, say, Alton Park, Barcelona, other places. What would you like here?
I absolutely think you have to take tires. You have to take tires. You have to take tires no earlier than no earlier than the 45-minute mark left in the session. I mean, trying to put over 40 minutes on these tires is a lot of work with those high-speed straights, because once they start wearing down and breaking down, you lose so much speed through that back straight, the front straight, and then the second straight that it's absolutely painful. You will lose every position that you think you have gained. I think you're going to have to look at a stop somewhere around the 45-minute mark, somewhere at the earliest. I think at the latest you're going to be looking probably 25 left in the session. Whatever lap that turns out to be, rough math says 45 minutes is going to be 20 minutes, so we're looking at probably 10 laps in, I think, is when the pit stop window opens.
About 5 minutes in, yeah. No, we have a couple of audio leveling issues here on my end, which I'm trying to work out, so I appreciate that on your guys' end for the feedback. But one more quick look here at your OEM standings. We've got ourselves a BMW and a McLaren up front. That's going to be some much-needed momentum for both of these. Your quickest Mercedes right now is Edriel Lugo-Ortiz back in 8th. Porsches, you're kind of starving when it comes to that. You got Zach Leclerc back in 12th, so plenty of shakeups potentially in the OEM battle early on. Not a lot of repeating faces here in the top. I mean, you got Mikhail Charles, but I mean, you got Joel Klaus up front, you got Jorge Blasini Rivera. We're going to have a big shakeup up front, so we're going to figure it out as we are starting to stack up and getting ready to go green here. Round 3. It is an absolute matter of survival here. It's not a matter of when the chaos, or if the chaos will happen. It's a matter of when the chaos will happen and how you manage it and how you are able to survive it. How do you react to it? So we come...
Exactly, the chaos into turn one. Let's be ready.
Let's be ready for the chaos. Let's bring the chaos. Let's try and survive in the dark here. Let's go racing at Bathurst. Green flag flies. Quick start there from Mikhail Charles as he works his way to the inside. Landry tries to shove it a little bit on the brakes, but gets in line fairly quickly. Butkus wins the whole shot there, but Klaus falls back big time. That'll give Jorge Blasini Rivera a chance to attack on the outside. Zach Martin might go with him. Fairly uneventful here going through turn 2 as Landry already puts the pressure on as we go up the mountain for the very first time. And Landry is right on the bumper of Charles already with no time to waste here. Through Quarry Corner for the first time. And again, already we're seeing people kind of play it safe. Go single file here. You cannot win this race in the first couple of laps, but you can certainly make yourself look like an idiot while you do it.
I have certainly done that in practice this week, let me tell you.
Yes, we all have. Charles off to an early lead right now, but already feeling the heat from Michael Landry. One problem further back for the 19, it's Michael Quant. Someone else also collected as a result there. I believe it's Don Debian in the Ferrari. What has happened between these two? We'll see if we can get that soon, but already we've claimed our first victims here at Mount Panorama, and it only took us a handful of corners. McLaren battle here in the bottom. Dorenas Butkus gets to the inside of Michael Landry. They're side by side into the bend right now. Butkus backs out, but this battle will continue going on as we head into Murray Corner.
Oh, and it was the 19 car that hit a wall, spun out, and took out the number 12 and Michael.
Go back a little bit further, and I'll see if I can get that for you. Oh, here we go as we're watching that replay now. Heading down the bend here. Looks like we just missed it here. Lap 2, we're still trying to work out that replay system for you guys. It's not perfect, but we can get it to work. Both Quant and Debian have got it refired and going again. Debian had to fully get the car back over, but that will promote Thomas Homer up into 21st. So do you take your pit stop now and play the long game if you do something, if you make a mistake like this, or do you kind of try and roll with the punches? As, ooh, trouble for Michael Landry there. He gets into the wall, and that's got to be a little bit of front-end damage for his McLaren. Now in the phase here where we're starting to fan out. Just slightly. Still going to be a freight train for the majority of this. It's just nobody has an opportunity to overtake. Joel Klaus lost that whole shot big time. He's turned the jets on here coming out of Forest Elbow. He's already cleared Jorge Blasini Rivera. Let's see if he can maybe bring it back. He's tucked into the back of this Lambo. I don't think he's got anywhere to put that M2. Let's see, or M4. Let's see. Try selling a dummy, but Klaus is not buying it. So damage control right now for Joel Klaus, but your biggest mover so far is actually way back in 15th. Keith Bull, who started in 21st, is now already running up in 15th, just 2 laps in. He's got a pretty big freight train in front of him before he reaches Davin Sturdivant and Carter Hayne, but it has been some absolute nuclear moves so far for this man in this BMW M4.
Yeah, I think he took a little bit of advantage of some of that chaos going down.
No, absolutely.
Going into Skyline, and that elevated him a few positions, because when I went back and looked, it looked like 3 or 4 cars were involved in that in direct collisions, and a handful of others had to slow down substantially.
So BMW up front, followed by 2 McLarens on the remaining spots of the podium. Then Joel Klaus, Jorge Blasini Rivera, Zach Martin, Adriel Lugo Ortiz, Casey Jackman, Gavin Head / Jay, and Carter Hayne rounding out your top 10. Battle right now for third. It's between Landry and Butkus, as Butkus has been trying to get him on the chase. We'll see if we can potentially get that going again through Forest Elbow. Both are just so close to that inside wall. The message from our coach coach Brian Slater was just, the minute that inside line flattens out, you just open up the throttle, and it is a game of inches right there.
This straight is so long that if you can't optimize for top speed down the end of it, you've already lost. And that is something that both of these drivers are absolutely putting all of their effort into, making sure that they have the most speed coming up into that corner, making sure that they brake as late as possible, carry as much momentum through there as possible, because the lead out of Forest Elbow into the chase is such a key place to defend on this track, just by maintaining speed.
Trouble at Skyline. It's the 27 of Thomas Homer, who I believe lost it on his own, but has managed to get that Taco Bell machine going once again. And a bad day gone worse here for the Australian in his home race.
Yeah, looking back at Homer, it looks like he may have lifted a little too much or broke a little too early coming down Skyline, and that cost him a run into the wall and then into the gravel, I believe, shortly thereafter.
Yeah, Tank slaps it.
And that is a move I've pulled a handful of times.
Oh no, we both have. And Jorinus Butkus is absolutely kind of riding that razor's edge of maybe making that happen, as he continues to try and dig and get to Michael Landry. Got to within 0.4 of a second there, but it is still Mikhail Charles in cruise control out in front. Pit window is open. Again, I think the majority of the time you're going to see people park around. Ooh, more trouble here. This is right at, oh my gosh, where is this? This is the cutting. This is Jesse Beauclair, who's gone around. Oh, and he collects Brian Crane. In a major roadblock here. Oh no. And the drama continues. Let's get a replay here, Elliot.
Yeah, we're watching Jesse here, and he drives the Porsche, goes left, goes right, continues around as he should. So, oh, and it wasn't just Jesse. He slowed down for an incident ahead of him. That is a bummer. Jesse did what I did in Spa, and he made a decision to slow down to not risk the driver ahead of him, and in exchange that has cost him and a handful of other drivers dearly.
I want to believe that was maybe Ty Switt in that Turner Motorsports, that blue BMW that kind of checked the whole field up. I'm very, very curious to see what Greg Kashadarian has to say on the matter right now from our race control box, as we heard him earlier on today. He said, I'm ready to come out the gate swinging here when it comes to this course and these guys.
Yeah, I'm already seeing a handful of incidents being investigated. So far, it looks like there's one car that was investigated, but it was a racing incident. Another pair of investigations for another car that appear to be no further action. So stewards have yet to rule on this incident with Jesse, and we'll see what that turns into.
Let's watch his son Zach, though, hunt down Carter Hayne right now in that Hoons Racing, this yellow and blue Acura NSX, working their way through Skyline. It's a 3-car battle here, as Brian Slater and that Ferrari is just a little bit further behind, as we're already starting to see a couple of car break-arounds right now. And we are absolutely getting our reps in with the replay system now, with great thanks to the Tuesday split.
Yeah, this is it's a new thing we're trying, and I think
it's working.
Yeah, we're gonna get a rhythm together for it for sure. So for those who are excited, this is gonna be I think it's gonna be a good season of evolution here in what we put together, media wise for everybody. I see a quat in the pit, and the question I'm asking myself right now is he going to use this as his stop and single stint the rest of the race?
I think that might be the Arjun strat as we've dubbed it after Oulton Park. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to play the long game right now. He's got clean air, which he can absolutely use to his advantage. We talk about aero wash being a problem, and while it's not as intense as if you were in some high downforce open wheel car like a Formula One machine or an Indy car, it's definitely still something that's going to affect you. And just not having to deal with 3-4 cars in front of you and that constant anxiety of, well, what if one of these guys gets in the wall and we have a roadblock issue here? It's a lot of anxiety off of your shoulders, Elliot, to just kind of run in clean air.
Oh, exactly. Arjun didn't do it on purpose. After we talked to him, it turned out that it was a wet tire situation. He started the race on wets, a setup that he did not intend to run.
Grayson heads in the wall. Looks like a relatively drama-free scenario. Brian Crane's going to have to negotiate his way around here. But Grayson gets that Mustang going once again. Oh my goodness. And another one.
This is going to be a race of accidents. I can smell it.
Already has been. Still drama-free
like Grayson
up front.
Lost it coming around, is that 3?
Let me get the replay really quickly. Go back like 30 for me. Over to replay, Elliot. Break it down.
Yes, we watched Grayson take a nice line out of turn 1, it looks like. And, here that absolute speed out of that Mustang is a very high advantage. Brakes nice coming into turn 2. Keeps to the right like he should. Throttles and sends it all the way out wide. Absolutely clean line. Perfect work there. We watch him come into 3. I do a slight lift. The question is, does Grayson, as he comes around 4, and he took a little bit too much throttle coming out of 4, ended up almost in the service road, and that caused about 3 drivers to have to negotiate a path around. Fortunately, all of these drivers paying attention, watching their yellow flags, watching their map, making sure that they don't spend too much time negotiating around that accident.
I'll say this, actually. I feel like that was a smart move for him to kind of pin the throttle and get out of the way of the remainder of the field there. Keeping it outside of the racing line and moving it in, but he hit it dead nuts into where the access road is. So major front end damage. He's elected instantly to bring that Mustang into the pits for service and do that early pit stop. So that puts us now over to Zach Martin as your top Mustang in 6th. He's gotten past Adriel Lugo Ortiz, but he's kind of in no man's land right now, hunting down Jorge Blasini Rivera. Mikel Charles up front has kind of gotten that gap up to a little bit larger than it has been, about a second and change. And we're watching the biggest battle on track right now. Zach Baclair and Carter Hayne. We have watched these two battle for a couple of seasons right now. Ryan Slater continues to wait in the wings. And it's Porsche versus Honda going down Skyline.
Yeah, Carter and Zach having a great deal of speed and being in cars that, pace for pace can perform very well together through the high agility section of the mountain. And this makes it very complicated for that Porsche of Zach to get by that NSX of Carter, because they have similar braking and maneuvering points simply by design of them both being, one being a mid-rear, one being a rear-rear, but the rear of the Porsche drives very much in terms of speed like a mid-rear of that NSX, both being highly dangerous if you push the car too hard. So these two drivers are going to have a lot of work ahead of themselves if Zach wants to go ahead and get around Carter.
You can also just see how comfortable Zach Leclerc is on the brakes right now, closing that gap to Carter Hayne on the left pedal. But that Honda is able to just open it back up here. You can see as they work their way down Mountain Straight, now just slowly starting to get it into draft range. I just think Carter is so much more confident in this Honda right now.
Yeah, I don't remember if Martin drove or Beauclair drove the Porsche last season, but you know, the Porsche is one of those cars you have to have a very good feel for. You have to have a good rhythm with. You have to have a feeling of, you know, you have to have trust in the car. We talk about trust a lot with cars. Some cars you can trust very easily. Others you can't trust at all until you've earned it. And the Porsche, I feel like having driven the Porsche in the off season, you know, to me that Porsche is a car, there's a lot of trust building. You have to learn where the limit is, how to apply it. But so is that NSX, so it shows you how much more comfortable Carter is having done a couple seasons in the NSX, having driven it as hard as he has. You know, both these drivers being very, very, very skilled in both of these vehicles.
Actually, the second season for both drivers in these respective vehicles. As we've talked about before, Elliott Carter kind of in this rotating cast of cars trying to experiment and kind of, it's not speed dating because it's a season-long commitment, but he's been trying to find the one he's comfortable with. And after getting a handful of podiums and top finishes in the silver class last year, you know, we talked in the offseason and to him it felt like, you know, I finally found my guy. But for Zach, you know, it's so against the grain to go for something so on edge, but Zach's got this little bit of a background in go-karting, and he says, you know, engine so far back there, it actually kind of feels like I'm in a go-kart. So, comfortable fit for him. Still kind of looking to get solid results on the board right now, as it's also his sophomore season just in the Tuesday splits, working his way up from the Thursday rookies. But a top 10 is certainly something he'll settle for right now.
Yeah, I think any driver who is trying out a car for their second, maybe third season, top 10 is certainly an accomplishment to be proud of. You know, it's very hard to learn a new car. I spent the entire off season in the Porsche, and then I switched back to the AMG for the rookie season this season. And the first 2 weeks I drove that AMG, it felt like I had never seen it before in my life, even though I drove it the entire last season. And I thought to myself, what's wrong with me? Am I broken? But it's not necessarily me that's broken. It's just me having to relearn how that car handles versus the Porsche. I mean, those two are probably the most opposites of
100%.
opposites.
Although very, very similar to, from an engineering standpoint, I will say they actually have to push that engine in that AMG back as far as possible, almost cut out the firewall. So it is borderline technically mid-engine. It's just that's sitting on top of the front axle. But for those of you wondering why we're talking about, you know, rookie cars and Tuesday cars, what's the difference? For those of you not totally familiar, we actually run a set list for the rookies. The earlier non-Evo models, you got 4 different flavors to choose from: the Ferrari 488, the Mercedes AMG, the Lexus RCF, and the McLaren 720. And that kind of gives rookies the opportunity to not lean on the meta, kind of carve their own path when it comes to, you know, making your own setups, getting comfortable with the car, and really, really learning a car from the inside out.
Yeah, these cars, every one of these is a unique beast. Some of them they do drive similarly. Some of them you can switch from, you can switch from a. Hello.
Sorry, Elliot. We got an interesting choice on strategy here as Zach Leclerc works his way to the pit lanes. Had a couple actually take green flag stops so far. Grayson Head, Ty Sweat, a couple guys that weren't in accidents. There might have been a little bit of damage to the number 13, but I think that might have been more of a move of just getting that Porsche in clean air and out of battles.
And I want you to look at the clock here, Jackson. What was the thing I said at the beginning of the race?
Ballpark, not like after 50, but about quarter way in.
Yeah, that 45-minute mark is where I was thinking the key time to start thinking about a pit stop is, and we're at 46 minutes now, and we're seeing drivers start to pit. So I'm starting to think that, you know, maybe we have a very wide range of strategy that can be used in this race, this track. It's easy to undercut for a while. But then you get into traffic, and the traffic slows you down enough that the undercut is really tough. And it's easy to overcut.
Right.
And so I feel like this is a very balanced pit strategy in terms of which one of these techniques works well, under, over, or mid. And so I don't think it matters what you choose so much as you're confident in your choice. And that's something that...
Totally agree. I think the power of the overcut in the clean air is going to be just as strong as the undercut in fresh rubber. But as you mentioned, it's just down to what you're more comfortable with, what's going to snap, what's going to make your brain happier in that scenario, right? A couple more guys coming into the pits here. Layla Martinez, Matt Quant, Thomas Homer already scheduled his service. So we've got now kind of a freight train going on further back here of the guys who have pitted. But the big factor here is the 409 of Jesse Beclaire is about to come into view for Mikhail Charles, and lap traffic will be a factor for this entire leading pack.
And I the overcut, undercut, the other thing I think that might make the overcut a little more powerful here is there are going to be more incidents. There's going to be more challenges. And so if you stretch your tires a little longer, if you end up in one, you've set yourself up for a better pit strategy. Whereas if you try to undercut, you risk the possibility of being involved in another incident that can really slow you down. And you don't want to pit for damage if you don't have to.
Right.
You want to keep the speed of the car, so you have to start thinking about, what do I do?
More troubles here for Jesse Beclaire, who's gotten that 409 back running. We actually heard him in chat earlier. He said he crashed, had to teleport to pits, wouldn't stay running. So I don't know if he means that from a game perspective or from a Porsche running perspective, but with him rejoining, he's got a wing full of, I want to say that's Casey Jackman. But a rough day already for Jesse Beclaire. Yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he's referring to the fact that he crashed, and where he was at was not a spot you want to be sitting very long if you've crashed out. So I think to him it was like, okay, I have to go back to the pits because I have to make sure that I don't endanger anybody else's race, and it is commendable.
So this is going to be a headache for Casey Jackman, not only as he tries to close this gap to Edreal Lugo Ortiz ahead, but now this lets Carter Hayne behind inch closer to that BMW M4. And again, we've said it before, but we'll let you know again at home. It's not Formula One rules. When it comes to blue flags, you don't have to pull aside and let them by. It's just a matter of kind of existing in peace. It's still going to be the lapping car's responsibility to get by safely, because as Davin says, Elliot, it's so much more predictable to be in a spot where you know the car is going to be.
Exactly. We don't encourage blue flag drivers to pull into a weird position to give up that position, because we need to make sure that we pass them safely, and who knows what they're going to do once they pull off. It looks like Jesse missed the last couple of turns, allowing Charles pass. So that's a situation where if you missed a turn and you know you've missed it, you stay offline, you get back online when it's safe, and you don't endanger anybody else's driving.
New battle forming up here for the top five. Jorge Blasini Rivera and Zach Martin. Zach Martin, the top Ford Mustang here after issues for Grayson Head. Greg Kashadurian in the stewarding booth is able to run this thing comfortably, and I mean comfortably, in the sub 2 minutes. So we absolutely know what this car is capable of, but how is that running in clean air? He's looking clean right now against Jorge.
Absolutely. I'm looking back from our qualifying motions to now, and I see that both Slater and Sturdivant have come up 4 positions, part of those being pit stops and part of those being staying out of the wreckage. And Keith Boll has brought himself up 8 positions. So there's a lot to be said about simply avoiding the crashes here at Bathurst.
No, 100%. And I think we mentioned Keith Boll earlier on. There were a couple of spills there in the mid-pack, and that let him kind of get himself a couple freebies. And that's very much a strat here for anybody as we're watching in chat here. Sorry.
Oh, absolutely.
Parker Thomas asking Greg Kachadurian in race control how many drinks in he is, and we're already at 2 here with just getting to halfway. Still 40 minutes to go. But I mean, it's stretching out. Yeah.
It's been a relatively clean race so far.
It really has.
And I
it really
I don't
has.
want to jinx it. I'm knocking on wood down here. But It's been one of those races, and I think we can kind of, to some extent, expect a little bit of that out of this group of drivers, all of them being as fast as they are, but also as respectable as they are. They want to win, but they don't want to die to do it.
Exactly. Up until this point, very clean. Smiley face emoticon from Cachadurian. And as we say that, no commentator's curse, we've got more issues from Don Devienne, who spins it around here I believe this is Skyline. Greg, it wasn't me, I swear.
You can't park there. That is, I promise, Greg, I did not do it intentionally. I'm not trying to ruin your night. We love you, Greg.
No, again, that just proves you're real deal, Elliot.
Apparently.
Let's go back over to Casey Jackman right now, who's still leading this battle between Carter Hayne and Brian Slater. This has become a 3-car freight train for the lead. Just up the road, you've still got Lugo Ortiz kind of in no man's land. Then it's Zach Martin hunting down JBR.
You know, if I'm Adriel right now, I am counting my blessings about the fact that this is not Olton, and I'm not stuck behind Sturdivant for,
absolutely.
17 laps or something ridiculous, trying to pass, thinking about passing, being absolutely unable because it's Olton, and being forced to just sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait.
More trouble here. It's the 22. Just at the bottom as Ty Swift's gotten into drama, as I just almost watched him roll that M4 broadside onto the track. One of the Mustangs gets involved too. It's Head. And oh boy, we might have just caused the big kahuna here. Go a little bit further back so I can show everybody at home. Elliot, what happened?
So we're coming out of Forest Elbow. We're coming down that back straightaway, coming up, getting ready to come into the chase. And we've got a lot of tight racing here with a fast driver trying to lap 2 slower drivers, we can see by the headlights flashing. And as we come into the chase, we see him almost go too wide, and that's a risky maneuver, whether you're lapping a car or not. And he goes on the inside for the lap, and that, I don't know if I would have done that. I would have thought a little longer about the fact that I've still got 40 minutes of racing left.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a mess. This is going to create a very big problem.
No, because those are our 2 leaders right there. One of them was Ty Sweat. I think he might have gotten involved in it, but
yeah, we were watching from the perspective of the Ty Sweat car.
Gotcha. Okay. Some more green flag pit stops underway right now. JBR getting in. Davin Sturdivant going in. Jorge, your top runner right now to get that checked off. He's running in 10th. And the McLaren battle continues to rage on. We just got another issue here for the 28 in turn 1. That's Hell's Corner. As Matt Quant has gone around. He's knocked out one of the pit markers. I think that was on pit exit.
No, he was coming around the corner for another lap.
You see her going into turn 1 at Hell's Corner.
And he just loses the classic over throttle. You know, if you get on the gas too early coming out of turn 1 or 23, it is rough. It's any car, it doesn't matter what it is, you'll see it lose that rear end. I mean, I do it all the time in the Mercedes, and we joke about the Mercedes being the meme car for losing the rear end. But it's you have to be a little more careful when you're coming through these tight corners, when you're jumping on the throttle, when you're trying to keep, the speed and momentum. You have to let the speed and momentum carry you.
McLaren battle broken up here. Casey Jackman coming into the pits as well as Brian Slater. Carter Hayne is going to split that strategy call. He'll go long in the Honda. So a couple battles get
some
broken
trouble
up here.
Just out of Skyline.
Ooh.
As we follow Rivera in the replay, he's coming around. Oh, it looks like he missed a point to slow down. He's coming slow into Skyline. Around the bend. Oh, and
Interesting.
He broke too hard and he lost that rear.
Yeah. Huh. I think he might have clipped, I'll tell you what, I think he might have clipped the inside wall here. Ooh, drive-through for Joris Butkus. What happened here? Wait a minute.
Oh, and we have 2 penalties. At least I see 2. I see 1 plus 15 second for avoidable contact. And that is going to be a real damper, and that is to the Keith Bull car. I'm sorry, not the Keith Bull car. I'm reading this wrong. I got to get used to reading.
Oh, that must have been a Ty Sweat.
Yeah, they haven't announced which car gets the penalty. But then I see a warning to another car, and we'll find out what those are as we continue down continue with the racing. But another warning for a car for avoidable contact as well.
Leader is in the pits right now at just exactly halfway on the dot. Mikhail Charles brings that M4 in. Zach Martin follows suit. So assuming Michael Landry follows in lockstep. Nope. Landry will lead for the first time tonight. Klaus will get promoted up into third. So foot down for Michael Landry as he's going to try and use as much of this clean air to his advantage.
So that penalty, that plus 15 seconds, is on a Grayson head for that incident we saw with Ty Sweat, where they were going into the chase together, and Grayson broke a little bit late. I don't think he intended anything harmful, but unfortunately that was the result, and so he's received a plus 15 seconds according to our stewards.
Brutal. Battle for ninth right here. Brian Crane being hunted down by Jorge Blasini Rivera. Crane has not pitted yet and is holding up the game plan right now for JBR, so he's going to be eager to get around him. He looks to the outside, but Crane blocks. Now will dive to the inside. We'll go for it deep on the brakes here, and a relatively easy fight from Brian Crane means it's going to be a done deal to get JBR up into ninth. Very, very good clean move there from the BMW driver.
Yeah, I can't say I'm necessarily surprised. I mean, Jorge has a lot of speed, and he drives that BMW like he stole it. And that's the way to drive around here, right? That's the way you have to carry that car. And so Brian Jorge's pitted. Jorge has fresher tires. Brian is still running on his original set of tires, and he's been running for 30 some odd minutes now. So I think it's just a matter of the fact that Jorge had a little more speed. He drove the car a little faster, and he had fresh tires, and that gave him that opportunity to do a clean send.
Just behind, this is your battle outright for 10th. Oh my goodness, Brian Slater looking to the outside of Casey Jackman, gets back in line here, going into the cutting, but tries the over-under. Might see it here through the quarry as Crane is trying to put that Ferrari where the sun doesn't shine, but Jackman is not cracking under pressure one bit. Some incredible bravery from Slater, but some great defense from Casey.
Yeah, Slater and Casey both having a lot of respect for each other. Neither of these drivers, I think, want to have any sort of an incident. So Slater thinks he saw a weakness, but he couldn't exploit the weakness at this moment. So he says, I'm just going to go ahead and back off slightly.
Hard to pass on the mountain traditionally. You can force a mistake just by existing in someone's rearview mirrors, and if you can push them wide enough, have a little bit of a mishap, run against a wall, you're able to pounce, and it's difficult, and the window is small, but it's definitely possible. Back here through Conrad Straight, all of the horses right now in Slater's Ferrari working as hard as possible to get this pass into the chase. Will he try and have a look at it? No dice right now. Jackman sits that BMW in the middle of the track. It's great defense right now, even on the long parts.
It's great defense, but I'm seeing Slater get a cleaner line coming down into turn 23, so we'll want to keep an eye on this here for a moment. If there's anybody who can drive those corners, it's definitely Slater. He's put in a lot of work there. He's shown me how to drive those corners.
Oh, trouble!
And he makes contact. He
makes
contact with Jackman, sends them both down the runoff.
Oh, heartbreak for both Jackman and Slater. What was proving to be such a brilliant battle between both of them becomes heartbreak. And we have a yellow here in Hell's Corner. Oh my goodness. Trouble for
And
Casey
looking
Jackman.
at the replay,
He's still.
It looks like a slight twitch from Slater. It looks like he may have twitched or tried to turn in, and Casey was in his way.
Oh my goodness. And what was becoming such a good battle has become game over. Other BMW, Keith Bull, excuse me, now exiting the pits. All drivers except Brian Crane going to the pits so far, but oh my goodness. Slater will continue
Absolutely
on, although that Ferrari's got
heartbreaking for both
damaged.
drivers.
No, huge moment there. You saw a little bit of sparks from Brian Crane as we see that BMW bottom out going through the dipper. And that's kind of caused everybody to spread out big time right now. Charles holds that lead with about 2 seconds over Landry, so the undercut did prove out to work for Charles. But what this has done is given Joel Klaus that third place position. He's worked his way up 2 spots, and he's almost 20-some seconds ahead of Jorge Blasini Rivera. Granted, Brian Crane did have to go do that drive-through penalty.
Did Crane have a drive-through? I don't see anything on the
I believe there was a DT given to him or one of the McLarens.
I think that was given to Beauclair, and I saw it disappear. I don't know if Beauclair actually had to serve a drive-through or not, because I see Beauclair still right behind Haynes. So I got to suspect maybe that was a accidental misclick, and that stewards did not intend to do so, because I still don't see an investigation there for these 2 drivers.
Here he comes now. Elliot, see if you can get a replay of that incident between... I'll watch my monitor here when you got it. But let's see a replay of that Jackman-Slater incident once again, because I don't think we got a great from our end. So Brian Crane will be the last to pit. And a little bit of a battle brewing up for second right now, as Charles and Klaus both try to close that gap right now. But everybody coexisting right now. Let's go over to your replay right now and watch this battle. Again, some great defense. This is where we were watching from the wing of Jackman. He puts that BMW in the middle of the track, then goes to the bottom and forces that Ferrari of Brian Slater to go the long way here into Murray's.
Yeah, Brian, like I said, he takes a nice clean line through 23, and he gets a run on Jackman, and this is where I'm a little surprised. And you know, I didn't expect these 2 drivers to make a collision, but I see Jackman make a slight twitch to the right. I see Brian's car get a little twitchy, and I got to wonder if this is just a racing incident.
I think it really is, as nasty as that looked. And we have more trouble here. Who is it? It's Matt Quant once again, and that McLaren gets it loose, just going into... Oh, man, this is a fast part of the racetrack. This is McPhillamy Park. And he blew it right there on the racing line. That's scary stuff. But he gets that McLaren going once again. And he goes wide off into the gravel. So that might be day done for Matt Quant. Trouble there. Further up, Zach Beauclair trying to get that battle going again with Carter Hayne. Hasn't quite getting it done. As chat does indeed correct me, it was Butkus who I believe got the drive-through. My apologies. Did he DC? I don't see him right now.
Yeah, it looks like both Matt and Butkus are no longer in the race, so
Oh my goodness.
that's unfortunate to hear.
I believe it was indeed Butkus for kind of instating that Swit incident, causing that lap traffic. A little bit of an issue right now for Mikhail Charles. He's got the 19 behind him right now. That's Matt Quant in the Mustang in front of him, and he's going to try and use that spacing to his advantage right now to hold that lead against Michael Landry, who is charging hard.
Michael Quant. Matt Quant is no longer on track.
We'll get it one day.
Yeah, we'll figure him out. They're twins. We're allowed to make a mistake, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Chat, help me out here.
Want to say hello to everybody in chat right now, all the rookies watching. A reminder, if you're not a part of the NASRS community, just holler and we will absolutely get you a Discord link to join the greatest ACC community on Discord. No bias at all there. But if you want to be a part of this action, Tuesday signups are still open. Wednesday, tomorrow, we run GT4s and GT2s here at Mount Panorama. And then Thursday, it's on to the rookies, which is currently somehow, some way full. But if you are willing to waitlist, we are more than welcome to get your name in, to get yourself ready for pro driving. Both me and Elliot are a part of it. We love it.
It is an absolute blast. It gives us a great learning opportunity here, a great opportunity to make some really good friendships. It's so important. I refer to racing, even though you're alone in the car, it is a social hobby. It is a social event. It is a social thing because you spend so much time with these people practicing together and working together and learning together.
I don't think I've mentioned this before, but what I appreciate as a broadcaster and someone who's trying to do this for real is you have that sense of community, which I feel like not a lot of other leagues can say they have. I've commentated for other iRacing leagues and other Assetto leagues, and some of the guys that run it have told me, some of these guys speak maybe once or twice in total, but we have our house of practice that we run day in, day out. You'll on average see 5-6 guys getting ready for their races, and they'll be chatting with one another in social channel. But that feeling of community is not just something that's nice as a broadcaster. It kind of reflects, real world racing. The fact that you've got to talk to these guys outside of the cars.
Oh, yeah.
But I appreciate it greatly. And if you're not a part of that yet and you're somehow watching, I would highly, highly recommend you go and fix that.
I have been reminded by our stewards that drive-thrus are automatically applied for track limits, and I always forget that because I remember the fact that we have stewards. I'm like, oh yes, we have the thing that does the stuff, and it turns out that this time the drive-through for Butkus was most likely a track limits violation.
Jake Stork to Zach Beauclair. I say that, but it's hard for me to even imagine a place where you could violate track limits on this track. Maybe down at the bottom near pit lane if you're doing. I'll tell you what, I think I know what happened. Because one thing I haven't mentioned yet, and I probably should have, this pit entry is really, really hard. You don't really have a lot of permanent brake markers. It's like 3 switchbacks in a row, and the limiter line comes at you so damn quick. So my theory is he probably cut the track. We'll have to hear from him officially, but I think he cut the track, and they probably deemed it as even 2-3 strikes just to get to pit lane if you cut that chicane. As Zach Beauclair now coming back into the pit lane. I believe that was because he served his drive-through earlier and now has to serve it once again. Interesting.
Or was it another drive-through for track limits? And
I did not see a drive-through issued to him. Greg Kashadurian can maybe answer that for us, but I believe he was all good. Lap traffic right now for Mikel Charles. That's one of the Fords, I believe. Grayson Head in front of him in that Mustang, looking for a way around. Grayson's going to go to the high line and let him through in the marbles. And there's actually a really big benefit here as Charles is able to use all of this slipstream given to him as they head down the chase.
I think that was Michael. That was Michael Kwan.
Oh, it was one of the Quants, yeah.
Grayson's still back kind of doing his own thing right now, coming up the first straight. He's coming up to Casey, who is having an unfortunate day, a series of unfortunate events, and my heart does go out to Casey. That is a rough incident between himself and Brian, and he got the rough of it, I think, going
ballsy
into
move
that
there.
runoff road.
To get by Brian Crane there in that McLaren, and now lap traffic going to be a factor as out comes Zach Beauclair from the pit lanes. So a couple different competition laps in practice right now, but we're going to have an absolute freight train coming up the mountain. It'll be led by Zach Beauclair. This is for position right now as, wow, hung around the outside there. Quant gets by Crane going up the hill there. I believe that's Griffith Bend. Yes, it is. And that's pretty much the last opportunity you have before you're actually in the mountains. So a very gutsy move there, but gets it done.
Yeah, the mountain is one of those areas where I don't pass. I know that it is doable, but you have to have a lot of trust in the driver that you are making a move on.
Watching here, Casey Jackman and Grayson Head going at it right now. This is just outside the top 10, as Head just lost that position, actually. This is working their way out of the chase, and Grayson Head gets promoted. I want to see if we can actually get a replay of that pass, Elliot, because I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But Grayson Head, after an early on incident, has worked his way up into the top 10. Let's get a replay. And I think this is going to come at a incident from that BMW in front of him.
Yeah, it looked like his line coming down that hill through Skyline was a little iffy. And then I see the BMW clip a little bit of the wall in Forest Elbow, so that's going to give him an opportunity for Grayson to make an absolutely clean run, put that Mustang to work. This Mustang's top speed being absolutely legendary. The joke always being that they get plus 40 kilos everywhere, no matter what, because Mustang.
Yep.
But I mean, he sent that car, and it absolutely took off.
So one move at the bottom of the hill might turn into another right now, as Joel Klaus has gone the distance in that Lamborghini. He's gotten his way all the way to Michael Landry, who's got lap traffic as well. Both of them are going to be trying to use it to their advantage. But, I mean, we're looking at, one, just how far back Joel has been able to get this Lamborghini. Had a little bit of a rough start. Was as far back as 6th and has kind of clawed his way forward. But when and if this strike is going to happen, where will it be? We know it's not going to be here, as it's going to be put on indefinitely, as there's a big slide from Joel Klaus. Man, somehow keeps that Lambo out of the wall, though. And a miraculous save from Joel Klaus.
He was looking so good, and turn 4, you cannot throttle too early there or too much. You have to be delicate, and that's just so unfortunate, as the stewards have issued a 15-second penalty to Brian Slater for that contact with Casey Jackman going into turn 1, and that's going to really put a damper on Brian's spirits, as well as now Sturdivant's going to be looking at that and thinking, well, we've got 18 minutes left to go. He's got a 15-second. If I just keep close, that's a free position. Yeah,
this is when you maybe go full military power to, if anything, maybe try and reach him. But absolutely an uncharacteristic kind of moment there for Brian Slater. We'll try and get both of those drivers in here and see if you can hear what they saw from their eyes. But still a top 10 right now provisionally. Grayson Head behind him also has a 15-second penalty. He's on that bubble right now. And he's not driving any slower right now. He's right on the rear bumper of Jake Stork.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these gaps right now, the Davin is certainly a real winner with the Slater penalty. That is going to help him a lot. Jackman is a winner with the Grayson penalty, because the deltas there are already close. As long as these two drivers drive clean and avoid an incident, those are free positions right there. That would put Casey up into 10th place. It puts Davin into 8th, and I don't think either of those drivers will complain about that.
Further back, Michael Kwan still on the move right now. He tries to get past Zach Baclair. It's no dice right now. He hits the wall just a little bit there through Corey Corner, but keeps the Mustang going. So right now, just your picture overall, Mikhail Charles with a very comfortable 6-second lead over Michael Landry. Joel Klaus was charging hard, closing that gap before losing it in turn number 4. He's still 2 seconds behind Landry. After that, Jorge Blasini Rivera 33 seconds back. An absolute 3-car breakaway right now. Edriel Lugo Ortiz still in no man's land in 5th. Carter Hayne, Jake Stork, Brian Slater kind of getting into it right now with this battle. Davin Sturdivant and Grayson Head rounding out your top 10. That will be given at the end here to Casey Jackman or Keith Cole, whoever is able to close that gap first.
Yeah, and looking at our really our first and second place, no surprises. both of those drivers qualified first and second. I absolutely expected to see them having a great time out front up here. Joel having climbed one position, I believe, due to the Butkus drive-through, and then unfortunate relief from the race. Jorge seeing a position exchange as a result as well. Adriel having moved up 3 positions from his grid spot in 8th, so that's certainly a big win for him here. Carter Hayne having moved up 5 from 11th. I mean, that's such an impressive motion. Jake Stork and Brian Slater and Davin Sturdivant all making up 6 positions each. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of folks move up the grid here with simply playing that game of survival, with the biggest mover right now being the number 12 position, the number 11 car of Keith Bull. His grid spot was 21, and he's sitting in a comfortable 12th place.
And that will essentially be an 11th or at best a 10th here. We might have a BMW battle towards the end here. So we will see.
I mean, looking at our gaps,
yep.
Keith has to pull 5 seconds of time out in the next 14 minutes to pick up that jump over Grayson. So I don't know if I'd be confident that Keith will do so. 15 seconds sounds like a lot, but Casey's 7.5 seconds back, and Keith's another 13 seconds behind Casey. So Keith's got a lot of work to do if he wants to pick up a position and make it up into 11th.
Jake Stork still under fire right now from Brian Slater. I think the approach for Slater at this point is he knows he's got the penalty, and he's just trying to get any kind of clean air right now to put as much of a gap to that 10th place spot as possible. But Stork has defended in that BMW absolutely brilliantly thus far. We'll see if he can here for the next 13.5 minutes.
Yeah, the big thing Brian's going to be thinking is, how much can I discount this penalty? How much of this can I wash away? Right now, Brian only stands to lose 1 position. So Slater is in a spot where if he can pass Stork and have the capacity to put in absolute steamers for the last 13.5 minutes, he may be able to pick up a big enough gap that he only drops down 1 position. But if I'm Slater right now, I'm thinking about survival. The fact I've already got 15 seconds. Do I want 15 more? Because that can be extremely costly at this stage, especially with Grayson being in that window of, Slater having a 30-second penalty. That could bring Casey Jackman up into the picture.
More troubles for Ty Sweat here. This is up along the pit wall as his BMW is absolutely banged up. But he will continue to go. I think he got loose here. Let's look at the replay really quickly. Here he is into the chase. He was already pretty far back off of the lead lap, but trying to close the gap to Thomas Homer.
He's driving a clean line, so it's really good to... oh, yeah, he does the classic over throttle. How many times have we said it today?
Yep,
don't jump
times
on the gas. Don't do it. It ain't worth it.
I think what people fail to understand is just how slippery that the runoff on the outside is there for you, but it's still a punishment. It's incredibly slick. You're not supposed to pin the throttle on it, and the car can get upset so easily when you're running a different level of traction on one wheel, and the suspension is doing so many different things, and it is incredibly easy, even in a front-engine car like this, to just swap ends.
Absolutely. And I mean, Switz, I don't remember what lap he pitted, but he's on older tires at this point, and you have to remember that going into some of these tight corners where you have an instinct to jump on the throttle. You have to remember that, the older the tires, the worse the grip is going to be, and if you don't take that into account, you pay the price.
Slater still hunting down Jake Stork, runs a little bit wide here. If we were running GT4s, that's maybe a move you could pounce on, but again, you're just moving too quickly here to make a move. Riding the brakes here, down the S's.
I mean, the aero on these cars, the aero wash through the mountain is really, you can work with it pretty well. So it's no surprise Slater keeps it tight, he keeps it close, because He's trying to put pressure on Jake, hoping Jake can make a mistake that maybe Slater can avoid, and that mistake can slow down the cars behind him and give Slater enough of a gap that 15-second penalty doesn't matter at that point.
Slater once again trying to get past the BMW, gives a little bit of a look to the inside. He's closing that gap brilliantly as Stork goes deep on the brakes.
The BMW goes wide, and that's the end of it for Jake and the Jake and Slater battle. Now, Jake may still see that position come back to him as the race concludes.
No, absolutely. So just keep it within 15 seconds. And that 7th place spot is still going to go to Jake Stork. But now that it is open roads for Brian Slater, he is absolutely going to turn the wick up and try and close that gap as much as possible. Further back, Michael Quant, Zach Leclerc still going at it right now. These two have battled ever since they've been out of the pit cycle. Both had a little bit of drama. Zach losing it on his own, getting a penalty. Michael Quant having a little bit of an incident in McPhilmy Park, I believe it was as well. So it is a battle of who is trying to recover the most from this race. More trouble right now, as it's the 409 of Jesse Beclaire. He's gotten into somebody else. It's the 14 of Jorge Blasini Rivera.
And that'll put a damper on Jorge for sure.
He was already running kind of in no man's land with Edriel Lugo Ortiz right now. As for some reason, and for my own punishment, the two longest names in this league all running back to back. Well, let's see if we can get a replay here and see what happened. Been a very, very long race right now for Jesse Beclaire, as this is one he's going to want to put away. I want to say this is the 3rd or 4th incident now he's been involved in.
And on another note, I was looking at the stint timers, and Ty Switt was 35 minutes on those tires and has pitted again, I assume, to put fresh rubber on, because the old tires, that once you get on old tires here, with as technical as the track through the mountain is, as we watch, Jesse go through the mountain, it's really tough to drive on icy tires. And there's where Jesse loses it, coming down the Skyline at corner, and almost fully collects Jorge, but Jorge makes it through.
Oh, barely.
Alive. That is a big oof. That is one of those moments where if I were Jesse, I'd be trying to forget that ever happened. The recovery here being, backing up into the wall was a smart move. Take as much of your car off of the racing line through the mountain as you can when an incident happens. But that's tough. That's a hard spot to crash and make it through.
No, and I want to say great driving from Jorge there for getting out scotch-free, but still a very, very... I still am thinking maybe Jesse should have held the brakes just a tad longer there. But again, not a lot he could have done there in the 409.
It's such a judgment call of, do you hold it more or less? Because in the mountain, as he's off again in turn 4.
Oh, man.
In the mountain, do you hold your brakes? Do you not hold them? Do you let the car, come to a rest on its own? And that's Brian Slater doing a full 360-degree spin down Skyline.
Oh, my goodness. What?
Almost collecting, is that Jake Stork? Yep, the Jake Stork mobile making a way around him, and Davin Sturdivant, and this is not great for Slater. He's lost several positions here already.
That might be day done. We're going to need a replay. Yeah, we're going to need a replay for that, Elliot. Oh my goodness. The drama continues. I don't know if Jake got damage as a result of that. Let's watch what happened to Brian Slater, though, working down Skyline.
Yeah, and so here he comes. He's coming down Forest Elbow. I think this is a little early in the replay.
That's okay. Push it a bit forward.
Let me fix that.
We are none of us perfect people.
Yeah, well, you kind of guess sometimes. So, Coming around turn 4, coming into turn 5, Brian, looking again at the stint timers, he's got 28 minutes on these tires. That's a lot of driving at Bathurst. That's a lot of opportunity to wear him out, especially when you push the cars this hard. He takes his standard line. He touches the wall a little bit, it looks like. Not enough to be a problem, but enough to unsettle the car. And then he hits
Oh,
that curb,
yep.
that curb being a death curb. There is no reason to touch it. Don't ever touch it. Brian told me this 19 times over the week. And then he makes the exact same mistake I did. And I feel bad for him. He should know better, but it's easy to get wrapped up in the race and maybe send the car a little bit wide trying to build up a gap because, again, that 15-second penalty being so harsh for where his position was.
Looks like that spooked Jake Stork, who went deep there and almost got the entire track there going through the S's. So that's a day done then for Brian Slater. Back up for the top 3. Guess who's back? Klaus is back. Tell a friend.
Klaus doing an absolute steamer of a race so far. I mean, to drive this long in this race from that position and not lose any time or space to another vehicle, he's putting all the work in today.
Fastest lap of the day so far has been Mikhail Charles. That's not a shocker, but it beats his qualifying time, 2 minutes, .532 on the clock. For reference, Landry's done a 2.6, and Klaus has done a 2.7. So 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 for your top 3. Klaus trying to close this gap here, and just to add another level, give another flower here to Klaus, shall we say, just how knife edge we know this Lambo can be. We've seen it when we watched its brother, the R8, compete at Imola. We know how knife edge this Lambo can be. So to be able to not just deal with it, but embrace it and use it to your advantage at a place like Mount Panorama, it's showing you just what kind of a driver Joel Klaus is.
Oh, absolutely. And I found a replay of the situation that sent Jesse Beauclair returning to garage to the pits, and I think he might be ending his race. He cuts 2 fine, but he goes a little bit tight coming out of 2, preparing for 3. He just goes a little bit too far to the left and hits the wall, hits the opposite wall. He keeps the car out of the way so the other car can get past him. And then he just kind of rides the wall a little bit. And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking that his thought process must be, man, this has been a day. I feel for him. It's tough. Bathurst is a very technical track. It's a very tough track. It's a track of focus and discipline. And it's hard to keep that focus for 65 minutes of driving.
3 minutes to go on the clock right now. Klaus trying to get himself into that second position in his Lamborghini Huracan. Further back, though, for the top 10, or for the top 11, shall I say, Keith Bull under heavy fire right now. This time it's Mac Quant and Zach Beauclair. Trouble! Zach Beauclair goes around. He keeps it going again, but gets very loose on turn number 1. We were talking to you about how loose that can be, and now Quant's going to look to the inside of Keith Bull onto the anchors here. Such a hard play, such a high-speed corner, but once again, Matt Quant gets it done at Murray's Bend. Oh my goodness.
And I picked up a replay of Zach coming around 1 here, and yep, he again overdriving the car a little bit of oversteer and sends it in the wall. It's tough. It's a lesson in car control, I think, for everybody here on the track today. It's hard to say that anybody's done it perfect every time, but man, it is challenging to
Rough day for the Beauclairs.
Yeah, you got to feel for both of them.
And with Grayson Head now coming into the pits, that puts him out of the top 10. So Michael Quant has now been promoted to the top 10 spot. White flag is out. There's more issues further behind. It's the number 10 car of Casey Jackman. Oh no! And another incident, and this might be the final nail in the coffin for his race. Oh no! Casey Jackman leaves the scene, and that means it might be Keith Bull with the top 10. What happened here? You gotta press F2 a couple times.
I'm looking for Jackman's car yet, because
It's the-
as he left, I no longer have
10 of Jackman.
his.
We'll get back to it. It's all good.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes to find him.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm figuring it out. All right, so I found Casey. Brakes are glowing red hot. Fine, fair. So he's coming out of 3, 4. There's a little bit of time left in the lap. 5, 6, 7, 8. Takes a little bit more curve than I think I would have. 9. It looks like he slowed down a lot more because of the bad line out of 8. Skyline. Cuts right. Cuts left. Doing fine here. Cuts right.
It's going to be right
left
here
down the
at
hill
Forest
again,
Elbow.
and there's the wall. That's man, that is
And both lights out.
Yep, the wall there is unforgiving, because when you go down that hill, you're carrying so much speed, momentum, and absolute. Your car is at its limit, whether you want it to be or not.
Right.
Comes around Forest Elbow, overdrives because his tires are shot from that slide, and I feel really bad for Casey today.
So the famine continues for Casey Jackman, but we are about to feast up front with Mikel Charles in we can't even call it uncharacteristic, because this young man has absolutely reinvented himself as a driver. Checkered flag is out at Bathurst, a big wiggle in celebration, and an absolute masterclass for Mikel Charles. He's your Week 3 winner at Mount Panorama. Slides it into turn number 1. Further back. Oh my gosh! Michael Landry went into the pits. What happened here? Joel Klaus took that spot away. Elliot, I think Landry might have ran out of fuel.
Did Landry? Yeah, I'm watching a replay of Landry here, and coming out of Forest Elbow. We need to take a look at this. So this is. So I think this is shortly after Casey Jackman.
Oh my goodness!
Landry coming out of. Where is he? This is Skyline. Hits a. He hits a wall.
My
hits another
goodness.
wall. That absolutely. That crushes that car. Hits another. He must have lost steering. He must have broke his steering,
Some
his
broken
tie
toe link,
rods,
yeah.
or as he's got no car control now. It's gone. It's absolute toast. I mean, that thing only turns left, and it only turns left into the wall right now.
So very rarely do we see a mistake from Michael Quant, but it comes at the worst time possible. So for Michael Landry. So that will mean a podium for Jorge Blasini Rivera. Joel Klaus gets promoted to second, and your race winner is Mikel Charles. We'll get a couple interviews for you here. Stay with us. Joined here now by your podium, or at least the top two of them. We're trying to get Joel Klaus for you guys, but let's start with your unexpected third place finisher, Jorge Blasini Rivera. Jorge, solid race there. I know there were a couple of, let's say, clinching moments there, but your thoughts on the race, a relatively quiet race until the end there.
I'm a bit disappointed because P2 was possible given what happened throughout the race. I was really happy at the start. I managed to get by Joel on turn 1, and I'm like, okay, if I can just keep him behind me, I should finish strong. And then just trying to concentrate on that, I made a mistake on Forrest's elbow, tapped the inside wall, and he got by me, and I'm like, oh no, okay, no problem. Just stay on P5. So I was keeping Martin at bay in that Mustang for a while, and it was going well. I pitted, came out in clean air, which is great, and then I didn't. The tires were too cold and the car was too heavy because of the fuel load, and I lost it on Forrest's elbow, and the car would not start. I was panicking. I'm like, please start, please start, please start. And then after that, it was just a quiet race, except for that one moment. I think Porsche lost it on Forrest's elbow and clipped me, and then I just slowed down to a Sunday drive pace because I had a pretty good lead on P4. But yeah, other than that, happy with the result, but P2 was possible.
Really, really solid drive. We'll see you next week, Jorge.
Thank you.
On to second place, Joel Klaus, who just watched Landry just absolutely plow himself off there. I mean, Klaus, we know you were charging hard there with about 15 minutes to go. You had a little bit of a slip up there going into turn 5. Walk us through your efforts there trying to close that gap to Quant.
Oh, it was tough, man. I started pushing a little too hard, and it was starting to get a little sketchy. You saw me almost lose it a couple of times, maybe. Yeah. Trying to catch Michael is always a really tough task, man. He's so consistent and so solid when it comes to the race pace.
So very rarely do we see an issue from Landry. What was the thoughts when you saw McLaren in your wall there with 1 to go?
I just thought I just have to go for it, and at the same time, I'm trying to calculate, like, is he gonna bounce into me? Because he's kind of in the wall, so it's really unpredictable. But I just kind of saw the gap and made it around him.
Really, really solid drive, Joel. We'll see you next week. Are we going to see you next week?
But you will see me next week.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
See you then.
Thanks, guys.
Race winner, Mikhail Charles. Mikhail, hi.
Hello.
Hey, we gotta really get this stigma of you trying to kill everybody out of our minds, because we
gotta put it to bed.
You're getting pretty dang good at this.
Relatively no contact, Mikhail.
No contact with anybody. Kept it clean the whole race. I mean, not even like a spin and win like Snetterton. Did that feel boring to you?
I mean, at first it wasn't, because Michael was keeping up, and his sector 3 was way better than mine. So he was like, I was gaining in the hill, and he'll gain like 3-4 turns in sector 3. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay on my edge, and then he kind of lost the pace, and it was just, it was chill. A nice Sunday drive.
Very nice. You had a handful of good results. I know your rest of the season is kind of in doubt right now, attendance-wise.
Oh no, I'll be at all.
Oh, okay.
I'll be at all the
there we go.
Races.
Awesome. We'll see you next week then. Really, really solid drive, Mikhail.
Hell yeah.
Couple more interviews here from Davin Sturdivant and others. Stay with us. Couple more guys here. Elliot Brown with me as well. But we are joined by Brian Slater, Casey Jackman, and Davin Sturdivant. Let's start with Brian Slater, driver of the Ferrari 296 GT3. Brian, I know obviously not the result you wanted, but some strong running up until the moment.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Yeah, cut the rear tire on that curb, and this hill just wants to kill you when it gets a chance, and that's what happened. Otherwise, yeah, I know I had a really strong race. I did get a nasty penalty. I haven't looked at the replay yet to say what the hey, but that's racing, my friend. That's just the way it goes.
I know obviously not the result you wanted, but pace was strong, and very rarely do we see some incident like this involving you. I'm assuming it's no harm, no foul on your end.
Yeah, no, it's just yeah, I have to get a chance to review the incident. I was on the inside. He was defending, and then as far as I was concerned, he came in front of me. But maybe not. I mean, obviously the stewards have a different story, and that's fine. That's if that's what they want to call it, that's the way it goes, and I'll have to live with that. It's not going to make a difference now, really. And no, it doesn't upset me. It's just the way it goes. It's racing, man.
You can hear the absolute anger and frustration in this Canadian's voice. Brian, I totally understand. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Jackson.
Over to the other car in this incident. It's Casey Jackman in the BMW M4. Casey, walk me through what happened on your end there.
I had some damage earlier on, but my pace was still decent for the mid pack. Brian caught up to me. I mean, I haven't looked at the incident either, but I believe I was pretty straight on the wheel coming into the corner. I had to brake a bit early because of the damage, and just got the wheel just got light. It was touched from behind, and I ended up straight on into the access road. It cost me about 30 seconds to get back on track, so that was about it.
Looks like we're just getting it right now if you can see the camera.
Yeah, I think I was pretty predictable as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. I know this obviously wasn't the result you wanted. You were looking at a top 10 result there, but how does this change your approach for the remainder of the season, if at all?
I mean, it's just to learn from. Bathurst isn't one of my strongest tracks, but I had some pretty good practice. I was pretty consistent. I was pretty good in 7 for a while there, but just some lapses on my part that caused I didn't even get to finish race. I had an incident at the end, so I guess it's on to the next round.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Casey. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
The reason we are all able to go do this every Tuesday night, Davin Sturdivant joins us, driver of the Honda NSX, the number 126. Davin, hello. Thank you so much for having us here. I think the big question on everyone's mind was we try and push this like unhectic environment here at Bathurst, and relatively speaking, I mean, people weren't exploding. There wasn't like a huge pile up. Your thoughts right now for how the pack did?
Well, I mean, I think because everybody practiced all week on House of Practice and really kind of put in the principles that we talk about in the league, it helped to make the race more predictable, right? We have this practice server so folks can get into rhythms and get into long runs and get used to knowing where to brake early and getting used to the other drivers. So it's not a shock when we show up on race day to know what it's like to be in a pack. We ran battle trains all week. And that made it really helpful to have, a slow car in front and have 6 cars deep all running together so that when it happened in the race, it's not this panic of like, I don't know what all these other cars are going to do. And I think that really contributes to cleaner races. So it worked the way it should. I was happy.
Let's talk about your race, because I know it was relatively quiet, but you saw a couple of guys with some penalties in front of you. Did that inspire you to maybe turn up the wick a little bit there with 20-25 minutes to go?
No, I hear you. I didn't really have a lot of pace today, and when you don't have a lot of pace, in my opinion, you need to be as operationally clean as you can because your car is already kind of slow. So I just kind of waited for Christmas gifts. I have to look back at some of my data and maybe some other faster laps to see why I was not doing so great. But you have to deal with it.exe, right? So all I did is fall into a rhythm and watch the cars around and saw if I was gapping them or if they were gapping me and just waited. And I got a lot of Christmas gifts. So I didn't really have to pass anybody because a lot of folks gave them back to me. So I just waited.
So we leave these very tight technical tracks. We go on to a couple of FIA Grade 1, some wide racing circuits, some smooth racing circuits for once, albeit you're giving us a little bit of wetness in as a gift, but the thought process behind you taking us to Nords and Monza over the next couple weeks.
Well, you nailed it, right? We did 2 tracks in a row that were tight and narrow. We did Olton, we did Bathurst, and eventually you're going to need a bit of a break, right? So we do Nürburgring and we do Monza. There's going to be some rain in Monza, and there's going to be some changing conditions too. So it's never going to be straight smooth sailing, but it adds a little bit of levity because you've got a little bit more forgiving track limits and etc. Right? So
Right.
It'll be interesting.
Elliot, anything else you got here for Davin before we sign off?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, your race, it was very smooth. It was very quiet. Like you said, you got landed with Christmas gifts over and over again. I mean,
Quiet race at Bathurst is fabulous,
yeah,
right?
it's certainly impressive.
We'll take it.
I'll take it.
Davin, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, man. Good job, guys.
Thank you. That does it for us here from Bathurst. We're on next week to Nürburgring, not the Nordschleife. It'll be the GP, but we're doing it. It's gonna be moist, Elliot.
Oh, it is gonna be moist.
We want to thank all of you guys for joining us here and spending your Tuesday night with us, and we will see you next time. Bye. For Elliot Brown and everybody here at NASRS, I'm Jackson Lambros. We'll see you next Tuesday.